Lake sturgeons were considered trash food until they figured out they could sell the roe as Russian caviar. We'll talk about that and more fun sturgeon facts while I sketch this little fishy. So let's just turn the page and get started. Good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning on a, goodness, is it Wednesday morning already? It doesn't feel like it ought to be Wednesday morning. It feels like I missed a day this week. But I guess it is Wednesday morning. And on Wednesday mornings, I like to do a little thing where I pull a toy from the toy box, a random object from the Random Object Randomogrifier, if you will, and I draw it and I talk about it. And today's random object is a lake sturgeon. Now, I actually do this every day at 5:30 in the morning, so you may want to set your notifications so you don't miss any of them. Good morning, Rick. Good morning, Dad. Good morning, Mom. My mom and Dad are in the chat. We're doing this live, so we've got Rick in the chat along with us. Hope you are well today, sir. But today's random object is a lake sturgeon. And lake sturgeon have been around for about 200 million years. They found fossils of extremely similar fish 200 million years ago. And these guys fossilized fairly well because they have bony plates on their backs. They don't have scales and regular fish structures. They have bony plates on their back, called scutes. And it's the same thing on the back of turtles and alligators, crocodiles. Scutes, big bony plates that fuse together and make these ridges and stuff on their backs. But they have found animals in 200 million year old fossils of this animal. And the body and size and style has been basically unchanged since the Cretaceous period. So for at least 66 million years, they find fossils of exactly this body style. When they're young, these scutes are quite tough. As they get older, the scutes soften. The body softens. But they live to be 150 years old. They don't even hit sexual maturity until they're 25. The females don't hit sexual maturity until between 20 and 25 years old. The males hit sexual maturity at 15 to 20 years old. But the females don't even start laying eggs until they're 20 to 25 years old. And they'll lay close to 2 million eggs when they lay, but they only lay every 4 to 7 years. They don't lay every year. They only spawn every 4 to 7 years, which is very slow and has worked for them all the way up until the age of industrial fishing. It's not quite surviving that. I alluded to this in the opening. In the 1800s, when they caught these things, they would throw them on the shoreline and they would let their bodies dry out. They just considered them trash fish. They would let their bodies dry out, and then they would use them as logs to fuel their to fuel the fires on their vessels, they would just burn them because they didn't think that they were worth eating. They considered them a trash fish. And then one day, somebody decided to cure and salt the roe and sell it as caviar. And they didn't just sell it as caviar, they sold it as Russian caviar, which shocks me. But how do you call it Russian caviar? But they did. They'd package it and sell it and ship it to Europe as Russian caviar. And in the 1880s, they were harvesting about 2 million tons of these things. 2 million pounds. It's 2 million pounds, not 2 million, not 2 million tons. It was, yeah. It was 4 million pounds. 4 million pounds. It was 2,000 pounds by 1928. It was 4 million pounds. I'll get my numbers right eventually. I gotta read my handwriting. It was 4 million pounds in the 1880s, but it was only 2,000 pounds by 1928. Hunted to near extinction, because once they started selling the roe, they started finding other uses for it. They would smoke the meat. They would they took the swim bladder, and it cures into a gelatinous material called isinglass that they use to cure beer.
Like Sturgeon, it looked like the shark hit him yesterday. He first showed it to us. He said the leg sturgeon, and we thought you said the leg sturgeon.
Leg surgeon. Leg surgeon would be neat. They don't look much like fish, though. They look more like doctors. I'm sure some of the doctors look like fish too, but no, it's lake sturgeon, and it's considered a fossil fish. It's considered a living fossil because they are that old. They've been around that long. But yeah, they had 4 million pounds of harvest in the 1880s, and then dropped down to 2,000 pounds of harvest by 1928. Commercial fishing for these things is illegal now in the United States. Doesn't mean you can't still go out there with your rod and catch them, but commercial fishing is illegal. Canada, it's highly restricted, and usually that's the other way around. Usually it's Canada that's made it illegal, and the U.S. is just restricting it. But this time, the U.S. beat Canada to it. Yeah, once they found they could sell it for Russian caviar, they decided to find a whole lot of other uses for it, and then it became the most sought after game fish in the Great Lakes area. They do kind of have the same body shape as a shark, but That's just because they're fish, and so are sharks. That's about where the similarities end. These guys don't have teeth. They have a long tube-like mouth that they use to suction the debris off the floor, the detritus off the floor of the lake or river. They don't have scales. They have these scutes that we have, the aforementioned scutes. They're about 10 feet long. They can be up to 10 feet long, but they're not today. Today they're considerably shorter, between 3 and 7 feet. Chat's quiet today.
Yep.
I'm going to run out of facts. I need people to chat with. Mixing up a little Payne's Gray over here, some cobalt blue, some Prussian blue, touch of black, some and then some vermilion. What you said, Mom? The rain does make me sleepy. And then a touch of vermilion to gray it down. That way I can make my Payne's Gray as warm or cool as I like it. What'd you do yesterday? Oh yeah, my baby boy got lots of awards. Got awarded a position of honor. Next year he's going to be the flight commander. Yeah, my baby boy's doing well in our ROTC. Really happy for him. He's worked really hard in that. He's worked really hard in that, and he's worked really hard in Scouts.
He was in charge of what they call the Raiders, which is their PT competition.
Yeah.
He's already planning out routines for the exercises they will do.
Can you imagine a child of mine being excelling in exercise like that? He didn't learn that at home. That's some hippie stuff that he picked up somewhere.
He runs a pretty good mile too.
He does. He's got this image of me in his head that I was super fit when I was his age, and I had to explain to him, no kid, when I was your age, I was an indoor animal. I didn't do any of this stuff. When I was 16, I certainly didn't run. I was working at a feed store that my grandfather owned. Until I could get away from it.
He lifted weights.
I did lift weights. I loved lifting weights. All I ever wanted to do was lift weights and wrestle and play football. My school didn't have any of that stuff, so I ended up in show choir and home economics, and I was a cheerleader. My school had basketball and baseball and track. And I know when you look at me, you see svelte athleticism, but I assure you, I don't run.
There's Miss Ivy.
Good morning, Ivy. Yeah, running is not my bag. And if you didn't start playing, it's typical small town. If you didn't start playing baseball in the 4th grade, you were not going to play baseball in high school. That wasn't going to happen. There was no way to start baseball in the 6th and 7th grade. In the 7th and 8th grade, if you weren't already playing in the 3rd and 4th grade. Let me dry this real quick, and then we can move on to some color. That's a shame. I'm glad that Pamela's listening, but she's going to miss the vermilion. There won't be anybody to announce the vermilion. It's just morning. I feel your pain. I do. Vermilion. Thank you. There's Pamela. Vermilion. We got a lot of vermilion fans this morning. Can't talk, Harding. There we go. No, don't forget that gun right there. All right. Let me dry that real quick, and then we can eat it. How are we doing on time? Oh, it's only 5:51. We have plenty of time. Let me dry that real quick. Put the cap back on my water brush. So, have any of you fisher people ever caught a lake sturgeon?
Joe probably.
I see that. Good morning, Joe. I see that. Mom, do you know anybody that's caught a lake sturgeon?
Well, I don't. I didn't even know what it was till today.
I had no idea. I knew a sturgeon was a fish, but I had no idea of its living fossil status. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That was a new discovery for me.
They said in Oregon, when you catch a sturgeon, you cannot take them out of the water treatment. What do you do with it?
Let them go. It's commercial fishing is banned on these things. I would imagine that any kind of fishing is highly regulated. They're endangered. Most versions of them are endangered. They're considered. They think that they're down to less than 1% of what they were in the 1800s. Now they're making a comeback due to the conservation efforts, but it's slow because, again, it takes 25 years for the females to reach maturity, sexual maturity. And then they only spawn once every 7 years. So she's had. Did it come up to your kayak? That'd be pretty cool to have one of these little dinosaur fish come up to your kayak.
It also says that we know what she loves us, the fishes and stuff, like morning hanger.
Yes.
She loves this hour.
I certainly appreciate it. I truly do. The problem that you are having right now is the problem that I have at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes,
At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, my eyes cross. I can't get them both to open at the same time. Stuff starts slipping out of my hands because I'm dozing off while I'm sitting there holding it. And I'm still at work. I still have 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I still have an hour left of work. And then I have to drive home. Let's see, today is the 20th of May. In Black Lake, the Black Lake population was down to around 600, estimated 600 in the late 80s, and now they estimate them to be up around 1,200. So they've doubled. Their population has doubled. That's such a small population. In the St. Clair River area, they've got about 33,000 of them, and that's a good improvement. But again, it's considered way below their historical numbers, and it's just difficult because they breed so slowly and they age so slowly. They grow, like I said, they live to be 150 years. So, you know, when they live 150 years and they don't reach spawning age until 25 years, it's just a very, very slow recovery. You know, that all worked well when it was when they had time. Nothing really hunted them because they've got those bony plates, and there wasn't really anything big enough in the Great Lake area. Once they reach sexual maturity, there's not really anything big enough to attack and kill them in the Great Lakes in the northern U.S. freshwater regions. So they're kind of top of the food chain, but then the industrial fishing complex comes along. So there is my version. What? Oh my. I bet that's scary too. Yeah. Because alligator guards have teeth. So anyway, here's my version of it from the photograph. Let me show it to you from my perspective. Here it is. Here it is from my perspective. So that's what I did today. Tomorrow, the sharks of the freshwater. The alligator gar is a shark of the freshwater. Tomorrow, what do we have tomorrow? Oh, the suspense. The suspense is what throws you off. It's what gets you every time. The suspense. Here we go. Here's something unusual. It's a lion's head rabbit. These lion's head rabbits have these little mane fringe around their faces, and that mane is dominant. When they breed with other rabbits, that mane carries on to the other rabbits. So that mane is a dominant trait. And they have the same brachiocephaloid problem where their face is mashed up, so they have breathing and teething problems like the Netherlands dwarf that we talked about the other day. So we'll talk about that and more fun lion's head rabbits tomorrow while I sketch this little hopper at 5:30 a.m. Texas time. We do this every day at 5:30 a.m. Texas time, so you may want to set your notification bell so you don't miss that. But guys, thank you so much for joining me. You know I look forward to this every day. It is my favorite part of the day when I get to art with my besties. I do really run down here every day so I can be here with you guys. Joe, Ivy, Pamela, Rick, thank you guys so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Be sure and tune in tomorrow, same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel. And then we dance. We dance until somebody says they see me dancing, because when they see me dancing, I know the lag is cut up with the stream and I won't get cut off mid-sentence. Gives you a chance to click the clicky thingies this way if you're on the horizontal, or this way if you're on the vertical. Gives everybody a chance to say their hellos and goodbyes and asking questions of each other. But the